My name is Harper Lane. I was once the wife of a successful man, once a creative director in the advertising world, and once convinced my life was safely framed in a picture-perfect world. Until that night. The night I caught my husband kissing another woman, while I was on stage giving a speech about the power of creativity and rebirth. I free fell, but from the ashes I built something no one saw coming. Before I share this unbelievable journey, where betrayal led to a miraculous birth, and loneliness turned into a thriving community, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've ever made it through something that almost broke you. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. The chandeliers at the Portland Museum of Contemporary Art cast everything in a golden glow that night. I remember thinking how perfect it all looked. The way the light caught on champagne flutes, how Daniel's hand rested confidently on the small of my back as we mingled with Oregon's creative elite. Harper Lane Wexler, I introduced myself for what felt like the 100th time that evening, the hyphenated name still feeling foreign on my tongue even after 4 years of marriage. Yes, Daniel's wife. I used to run creative at Morrison & Associates. Used to. The words tasted bitter, but I smiled through them. I'd given up my position as creative director when Daniel's investment firm took off. "Why stress yourself with client demands when I can take care of us?" he'd said. It had seemed romantic at the time. The charity gala was for Arts Access Portland, an organization bringing creative programs to underserved communities. As a former agency executive, I'd been asked to speak about the importance of creative expression in professional development. My hands trembled slightly as I approached the podium, but not from nerves. Something felt off tonight. Daniel had been distracted, checking his phone more than usual, his smile not quite reaching his eyes when he looked at me. "Creativity isn't just about making beautiful things," I began, finding my rhythm as I addressed the crowd. "It's about finding your voice when the world tells you to be quiet. It's about building something from nothing when you've been told you have nothing to offer." The words felt prophetic, though I didn't know it yet. I was mid-sentence when movement near the service corridor caught my eye. Just a flash at first. Daniel's distinctive salt and pepper hair, the emerald dress I'd complimented earlier on his assistant, Sophia. My voice faltered for just a moment, but I pressed on. Professional instincts taking over even as my mind reeled. "When we invest in creative communities," I continued, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me, "we invest in resilience, in the ability to reimagine our circumstances and rebuild from whatever life throws at us." The crowd applauded. I smiled, bowed slightly, and walked off stage with the poise of someone who hadn't just watched her husband kiss another woman in the shadows of a charity gala. I found Daniel by the bar 20 minutes later, Sophia nowhere in sight. He was laughing with Jim Morrison, my former boss, as if the last 20 minutes hadn't happened, as if he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of our life. "Darling," he said, sliding an arm around my waist. "Beautiful speech. Jim was just saying how much the agency misses your vision." I let him drive us home, let him fill the silence with commentary about the event, potential investments, weekend plans. In my clutch, my fingers worried at the edge of something I'd been carrying for 3 days. A pregnancy test I'd bought but hadn't yet had the courage to take. "You're quiet," he finally said as we pulled into our Pearl District loft. "Am I?" I watched the city lights blur past the window. Inside our apartment, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture he'd chosen, I poured myself water while he loosened his tie. "I saw you," I said quietly. My back to him, with Sophia by the service corridor. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. When I turned around, he wasn't denying it, wasn't scrambling for excuses. He just stood there, tie half undone, looking almost relieved. "I need someone who sees me for who I really am," he said, as if this explained everything, not just as an extension of themselves. "Sophia, she understands my vision, my ambitions." "Your vision," I repeated, the words hollow. "And what about my vision? The career I gave up, the life You chose comfort," he interrupted. "Don't rewrite history now, Harper." I could have screamed, could have thrown the Waterford crystal tumbler in my hand, could have listed every sacrifice, every compromise, every piece of myself I'd carved away to fit into his life. Instead, I set the glass down carefully on the marble counter and walked to our bedroom. I packed methodically. Not everything, just enough. Clothes for a few days, my laptop, the pregnancy test still in my purse. He didn't follow me, didn't try to stop me. When I wheeled my suitcase past the living room, he was pouring himself scotch, already on his phone. The last thing I said to him was, "I'll send someone for the rest." In the elevator down to the parking garage, my reflection in the mirrored walls looked like a stranger. Perfectly styled hair, designer dress, empty eyes. I had no idea that in 12 hours everything would change again. Maya's house in Forest Grove smelled like dogs and lavender. A combination that should have been jarring but somehow felt like home. My sister, a veterinarian who'd never married, lived 40 minutes outside Portland in a craftsman cottage surrounded by Douglas firs. I'd always teased her about her spinster life, with her 3 rescue dogs and organic garden. Now I was the one showing up at her door at midnight with a suitcase and no plan. "Don't say anything," I warned as she opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. She didn't. Not that night. She just made up the guest room, left a cup of chamomile tea on the nightstand, and let me cry myself to sleep while her golden retriever, Bartleby, kept watch at the foot of the bed. The next morning, I woke to the sound of chickens and the strange realization that I'd left my entire life behind with one suitcase and an unused pregnancy test. Maya was already at her clinic, but she'd left a note. "Take your time. Breakfast in fridge. Don't make any decisions today." But my body had other plans. I was walking along the Willamette River Trail that afternoon, trying to clear my head, when the world tilted sideways. One moment, I was watching a blue heron fish in the shallows. The next, I was on my knees in the gravel, vision swimming. A strange, cramping sensation rippling through my abdomen. Ma'am, are you okay?" A jogger's face appeared above me, haloed by the gray Oregon sky. "I'm calling 911. The ambulance ride was a blur of questions I couldn't answer coherently. Emergency contact, my sister, medical conditions, none that I knew of. Possibility of pregnancy? I laughed, or maybe cried. The EMT couldn't tell the difference. "We need to run some tests," the ER doctor said, her voice kind but clinical. "When was your last period?" I tried to think, but the days had blurred together. 6 weeks? Maybe 7? I've been under stress. 8. The ultrasound wand was cold against my skin. The technician's face went from routine to focused to carefully neutral. "I need to get the doctor," she said, leaving me alone with the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of a heartbeat that wasn't mine filling the room. When the doctor returned, she brought a colleague. They moved the wand across my abdomen with practiced precision, occasionally exchanging glances that made my chest tight with fear. "Mrs. Lane Wexler," the doctor began. "Just Lane," I corrected. Harper your Lane." "Ms. Lane, you're pregnant, approximately 8 weeks." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "With triplets." The word hung in the air like something foreign, impossible. I'd been told at 25 that conceiving would be difficult if not impossible. Endometriosis had scarred my fallopian tubes. Daniel and I had tried for 2 years before he suggested we stop stressing about it and focus on other things. Like his career, like the life he was building that apparently didn't include me anymore. I couldn't finish the sentence. But I was told, multiple pregnancy can sometimes occur in women who've had difficulty conceiving, the doctor explained. Your body may have hyperovulated. It's rare, but it happens. However, I need to be frank with you. Carrying triplets is high risk. You'll need specialized care, frequent monitoring, and her words faded into white noise. 3 heartbeats on the monitor. 3 lives growing inside me while my own life lay in ruins. The irony was so sharp it could cut. Maya arrived as they were discussing prenatal vitamins and perinatology referrals. She took one look at my face and knew everything had changed again. "I'm pregnant," I told her in the car, the words feeling surreal. "With triplets." She nearly drove off the road. "What? How? I know how, but Harper, this is huge. Does Daniel, No." The word came out sharper than intended. And he's not going to. Harper, he's their father. He has a right to the life he chose, I said, my hand unconsciously moving to my still flat stomach. With someone who sees his vision. These babies, they're my vision now, mine alone. Maya was quiet for a long moment, navigating the winding road back to Forest Grove. Finally, she reached over and squeezed my hand. Not alone, she said. Not anymore. That night, I sat in her guest room with 3 ultrasound photos spread before me. 3 tiny seahorse shapes, each with its own flickering heartbeat. My phone had 17 missed calls from Daniel, but I couldn't bring myself to listen to the voicemails. Instead, I opened my laptop and created a new document. At the top, I typed, Day 1, after the ashes. I didn't know yet that those words would become my lifeline, the beginning of something that would grow far beyond my small story of heartbreak and hope. Morning sickness with triplets, I discovered, was like regular morning sickness decided to bring its extended family and throw a party in my digestive system. Maya converted her home office into my bedroom so I'd be closer to the bathroom. Some days, I couldn't make it from the bed to the toilet without stopping to dry heave into the wastebasket she strategically placed halfway. This is glamorous, I muttered one morning, head in the toilet while Maya held my hair back before leaving for her clinic. You're growing 3 humans, she reminded me. You're basically a superhero, a puking superhero, but still. It was during one of those bathroom floor moments that I opened my laptop and started writing. Really writing. Not the polished copy I used to craft for clients, but raw, honest words about betrayal and biology. About finding out you can create life at the exact moment your life falls apart. I posted it anonymously on a pregnancy forum at 3 a.m., unable to sleep from the combination of nausea and the Greek chorus of heartbeats keeping rhythm in my body. By morning, I had 43 responses. Women who'd been where I was, not the triplets part necessarily, but the intersection of pregnancy and betrayal, the crossroads of creation and destruction. Start a blog, one commenter suggested. Your words made me feel less alone at 4 a.m. when I couldn't stop crying. So I did. The Ashes Project, a name that came to me while watching Maya's fireplace one evening, thinking about phoenixes and other mythical creatures that found a way to begin again. I wrote about the practical things, how to hide severe morning sickness when you're living with your sister and trying to maintain some dignity, the emotional things, the phantom limb sensation of a marriage that was gone but still somehow aching, the surreal things, growing 3 lives while rebuilding one. What I didn't expect was for it to resonate. Within 2 weeks, I had 1,000 subscribers. Within a month, 5,000. Women and some men from around the world, sharing their stories of starting over, of finding themselves pregnant and alone, of discovering strength they didn't know existed. You should monetize this, Maya said one evening, finding me surrounded by prenatal vitamins, ginger tea, and my laptop. These people want to support you. I'd been resistant to the idea. It felt like capitalizing on pain. But then the high-risk pregnancy bills started arriving, even with Maya's help. Specialized ultrasounds, consultations with maternal fetal medicine specialists, the recommendation for weekly progesterone shots to prevent preterm labor. So I started small. Online workshops titled Reclaim Your Space, Reclaim Your Life, teaching design principles I'd learned in my agency days but applied to life rebuilding. How to create a nursery on a budget that didn't look like desperation. How to reorganize your living space to reflect who you're becoming, not who you were. How to build something beautiful from whatever materials you had on hand. The first workshop had 12 participants. The second had 50. By the third, I had to cap registration at 100 and learn how to use proper webinar software. My belly was visibly round now, though I kept the camera angled to hide it. The triplets weren't public knowledge yet. That felt too vulnerable, too precious to share. I used to think my ex-husband took everything. One participant wrote in the chat during a session on creating functional beauty in small spaces. But your class made me realize he just took his things. Everything that matters is still here. Those words hit me as I sat in Maya's guest room, which I'd transformed with thrift store finds and creative ingenuity into something that felt like mine. Not the sterile perfection of the Pearl District loft, but something real, something growing. The email that changed everything came on a Tuesday. I was 20 weeks pregnant, finally past the worst of the morning sickness, but struggling with the reality that I looked like I was smuggling a beach ball under my shirt. Dear Ashes Project Creator, it read, your blog and workshops have transformed my life after my divorce. I'm a software engineer who escaped a controlling marriage with nothing but my skills. I've since built a successful consulting firm. I'd like to invest $200,000 in whatever you're building next. Women like us need to support each other. We need to show that leaving isn't losing. It's the first step to winning. A Phoenix sister. I stared at the screen, certain I was misreading. Maya found me an hour later, still in the same position, tears streaming down my face. What's wrong? Is it the babies? Do we need to go to the hospital? I turned the laptop toward her. She read it once, twice, then looked at me with wide eyes. Harper, this is... I know, I said, hand on my expanding belly where 3 little acrobats were practicing their routine. It's a beginning, a real one. That night, I finally wrote the blog post I'd been avoiding. Plot twist, party of 4. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every woman who'd ever had to rebuild, who'd ever discovered that rock bottom had a basement, but that basements could become foundations. Week 30 arrived with the treacherous promise of viability. If they're born now, they have a fighting chance, my perinatologist had said at my last appointment. I'd clung to those words like a talisman, even as I willed my body to hold on longer. I should have known something was wrong that morning. I'd woken up feeling strange. Not sick exactly, but like my body was humming at a different frequency. But I had a live stream workshop scheduled, building your support network when you're starting from scratch. 200 women had registered. I couldn't let them down. You look pale, Maya said over breakfast, studying me with her veterinarian's eye for distress. I'm always pale now, I deflected, adjusting my laptop so the camera would hit me at the most flattering angle. The triplets had turned me into a walking duplex, but strategic camera work and a flowy top could hide a multitude of sins. The workshop started well enough. We were discussing the difference between bridges burned and boundaries built when the first real contraction hit. Not the Braxton Hicks I'd grown accustomed to, but something that started in my back and wrapped around my middle like a vice. Building boundaries, I continued, breathing through it, isn't about keeping people out. It's about... Another contraction. Stronger. My fingers gripped the edge of the desk. It's about knowing who deserves access to your energy. In the chat, participants were sharing their experiences. I tried to focus on their words, but the contractions were coming faster now. 8 minutes apart. 7, 6. Ladies, I'm so sorry, I managed. But I need to end today's session early. I'll send the recording and... I never finished the sentence. My water broke with a dramatic gush that would have been comedic if it weren't terrifying. On screen, 200 women watched as my composed instructor facade crumbled into pure panic. Call 911, someone typed in all caps. Where are you? We'll send help. Breathe, Harper, breathe. But I'd already slammed the laptop shut, screaming for Maya. The ride to the hospital was a blur of contractions and terror. Maya drove like she was in a movie chase scene while I gripped the door handle and tried to remember what they'd taught us in the high-risk pregnancy class. Too early. This was too early. 10 weeks, I kept saying. They need 10 more weeks. They're fighters, Maya said, running a red light, like their mom. The delivery room was chaos orchestrated. 3 NICU teams, multiple doctors, what felt like an army of medical professionals for my tiny army. They gave me steroids for the baby's lungs, magnesium to try to stop labor, but my body had made its decision. Baby A is crowning, someone said. And then everything happened at once. Kai came first, all 2 pounds, 11 ounces of him, screaming his fury at the early eviction. That's good, a nurse said. Crying is good. Luna followed 3 minutes later, smaller at 2 pounds, 4 ounces, but breathing on her own. Then Nova, my littlest, latest, and she came out silent. Why isn't she crying? I asked, trying to see past the wall of medical professionals. Why isn't she? They whisked her away before I could finish. A tiny blue form disappeared into a swarm of scrubs. The ICU team worked with practiced urgency while I lay there, half delivered, half dying inside. Please, I whispered to no one and everyone. Please don't leave me. I stayed for you. I chose you when everything else fell apart. Please don't go. Maya held my hand so tight I thought bones might break. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, a cry. Weak, more like a kitten's mule than a baby's wail, but unmistakably alive. 2 pounds even, someone announced. She's a fighter. They let me see them for 30 seconds each before taking them to the NICU. 3 impossibly tiny humans. More bird than baby, all tubes and translucent skin and determination. They're beautiful, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. They're alive, I corrected, and that was all that mattered. The next days blurred together in a haze of breast pumps and hand sanitizer, NICU alarms, and micro-preemie diapers that still looked too big. I basically lived in the hospital, pumping every 3 hours, dividing my time between 3 different incubators, learning a whole new vocabulary. Brady spells, feeding tubes, oxygen saturation levels. I wrote blog posts from the NICU Parents Lounge at 3 a.m., sharing the surreal experience of mothering children you could only touch through incubator portholes. The community rallied, sending prayers, sharing their own NICU stories, donating to a fund someone set up for medical expenses. From ashes to embers, I wrote one night, watching Nova's oxygen levels on the monitor. Sometimes the smallest sparks burn the brightest. Nova would spend 12 weeks in the NICU. Her siblings, 10 and 11 weeks respectively. But they all came home, and that was its own kind of miracle. One measured not in pounds and ounces, but in pure, stubborn persistence. 6 months after bringing the triplets home, I was running on approximately 3 hours of sleep and enough coffee to fuel a small nation. The babies had finally synchronized their schedules. A minor miracle that meant I could occasionally shower without someone screaming. It was during one of these rare, quiet moments that the idea for Ash's studio really took shape. What if it wasn't just online? I asked Maya over breakfast, bouncing Luna while simultaneously bottle-feeding Kai. Nova was content in her swing, watching the world with those serious gray eyes that reminded me painfully of Daniel's. What do you mean? Maya asked, expertly maneuvering around baby gear that had taken over her cottage like a cheerful invasion. The workshops, the community. What if we had a physical space? Somewhere women could come to rebuild not just their homes, but their lives. Maya paused, coffee halfway to her lips. Harper, you have infant triplets. When exactly would you run a physical studio? But the seed was planted. That afternoon, while the babies napped, I drafted a business plan on the back of burp cloths, the only paper within reach. A makerspace for women starting over. Design workshops, yes, but also financial literacy, job skills, childcare during classes. A place where leaving everything behind didn't mean having nothing. The universe, it seems, was listening. 3 days later, I got an email from my anonymous benefactor, the Phoenix sister who'd invested the initial $200,000. I own a warehouse in Southeast Portland, she wrote. It's sitting empty. If you're serious about creating a physical space, it's yours for a year, rent-free. Sometimes we need more than money. We need room to grow. Tasha came into our lives 2 weeks later. I'd posted in a local single mothers group about needing help setting up the space, and she responded within minutes. 42 years old, newly divorced, living in her car with her teenage daughter after escaping an abusive marriage. I used to run logistics for Amazon, she said, surveying the empty warehouse with a practiced eye. Before my ex convinced me I was too stupid to work. Turns out he was wrong about a lot of things. Within a month, Tasha had transformed the warehouse into something magical. The main floor became workshop space, stations for furniture restoration, sewing, basic carpentry, computer skills. The loft became a childcare area, visible from below so mothers could work while keeping an eye on their kids. We added a commercial kitchen for culinary job training, suggested by a participant who'd lost her restaurant in her divorce. It's like a makerspace meets community college meets therapy, Tasha said, admiring our handiwork. Minus the accreditation and plus the understanding that sometimes you need to learn to use a power drill while processing trauma, I added. Our first official workshop had 12 participants. Word of mouth did the rest. Within 3 months, we were running 4 sessions a week, each one full. Women came to learn tangible skills but stayed for the community. The recognition in each other's eyes, the shared understanding that starting over at any age was both terrifying and possible. I made this, Shanice, a 55-year-old grandmother, said one evening, holding up a refinished dresser. She'd left her husband after 30 years, taking nothing but her clothes. First thing I've ever made with my own hands that he didn't criticize. These moments, watching women discover they could create, build, transform, kept me going through the exhaustion of single-parenting triplets while running a nonprofit. Maya had become my co-parent in all but name, and Tasha, my right hand at the studio. We were building something I couldn't have imagined in those first dark days after leaving Daniel. The day Nova took her first unassisted breath, finally off oxygen after 9 months, I got another email that changed everything. This time it wasn't anonymous. Harper, it read. My name is Vivian Chen. You don't know me, but I know your ex-husband. I was the Daniel Wexler casualty before you, dated him for 3 years before he found someone who better fit his vision. I'm the Phoenix sister. Watching you build this from nothing, turning your pain into purpose, it helped me realize I'd been hiding behind anonymity and anger. I'm ready to step into the light. And I have a proposition about expanding Ash's studio to other cities. Let's talk. V. I read the email while simultaneously mixing 3 bottles of formula. Nova on my hip, the chaos of triplet life swirling around me. In the background, I could hear participants in the studio below, the sound of power tools and laughter mixing into something that sounded like hope. What do you think, little Phoenix? I asked Nova, who responded by spitting up on my last clean shirt. Should we see how far these ashes can spread? Sometimes the answer to complete destruction isn't just personal rebuilding. It's creating spaces for others to rise too. And sometimes the family you build from broken pieces is stronger than anything that came before. 3 years and 4 months after I walked out of Daniel's life, he walked back into mine at the most public possible moment. I was standing on the TEDx Portland stage telling 1,200 people about rebuilding communities after trauma when I saw him in the 5th row. The thing about ashes, I was saying, muscle memory keeping my voice steady even as my heart stuttered, is that they're incredibly fertile. Forest fires, as devastating as they are, return nutrients to the soil. What grows after is often stronger than what came before. He was sitting next to Jim Morrison. Of course he was. Still networking, still working the room even as an audience member. His hair had more gray now, and there was something around his eyes that looked like exhaustion. Or maybe I was projecting. I forced myself to continue, to not let him derail this moment like he'd derailed so many others. When I started the Ashes Project, I was pregnant, alone, and terrified. What began as a blog became a studio. What started as one woman's story became a movement. Today, we have Ashes Studios in 6 cities, serving over 3,000 women a year. The applause was thunderous. I took my bow, walked off stage, and there he was in the green room. Because of course he was. Harper. He said my name like a question, like he wasn't sure I was real. Daniel. I kept my voice neutral, professional. Inside, I was calculating. How fast could I get to my car? The triplets were with Maya at the hotel. Safe. Away from this. That was impressive. Jim said you'd built something special, but I had no idea. Yes, well, necessity is the mother of invention. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave, but he stepped closer, and that's when I saw it. The moment his eyes caught on the photo partially visible in my open bag. A picture Tasha had taken last week. Me with all 3 kids at the studio's 3rd anniversary party. Harper. His voice changed, sharpened. Those children. Kai had his eyes. Exactly. The same storm gray that went silver in certain light. There was no denying it, no pretending otherwise. I have to go, I said, but he followed me out of the building, through the Portland drizzle to the parking garage. Harper, please, how old are they? I stopped, turned, let him see the full weight of what he'd chosen to leave behind. 3, they're 3. The math was easy. Even Daniel, for all his selective blindness, could do that math. You were pregnant when you left. It wasn't a question. You were pregnant and you didn't tell me? I was pregnant when you told me I didn't understand your vision, I said, voice steady as steel. When you chose someone who could see the real you. Congratulations, by the way. I heard you and Sophia got engaged. When's the wedding? He flinched. We broke up 2 years ago. It doesn't matter. Harper, those are my children. I have rights. You have DNA? I interrupted. Nothing more. They have a family. They have Maya, who's been there for every fever, every milestone, every sleepless night. They have Tasha, who teaches them to be brave. They have a community of women who show them every day that families come in all shapes. What they don't have is a father who chose them. I didn't know. And whose fault is that? You created an environment where I couldn't tell you, where bringing 3 innocent lives into your vision would have been seen as an inconvenience at best, a trap at worst. He stood there in this rain, looking older than his 42 years. What are their names? I could have been cruel, could have refused. Instead, I heard myself saying, Kai, Luna, and Nova. They're brilliant and stubborn and kind. Kai loves dinosaurs and hates green vegetables. Luna sings constantly and fearlessly hugs strangers. Nova is quiet but notices everything. She's been drawing since she could hold a crayon. Can I meet them? No. The word came out firm, final. Not now, maybe not ever. But if you're serious about knowing them, you start with a lawyer and a therapist. You figure out what kind of man you want to be for them, not what kind of claim you think you have. You email me, don't call, don't show up, and we'll see. I left him standing in the parking garage, rain soaking through his expensive suit. Back at the hotel, I found Maya reading to all 3 kids, Nova in her lap, the boys flanking her sides. Mama! Luna shrieked, launching herself at me. You were on big TV. Yeah, baby, I said, gathering all 3 of them close, breathing in their bubble bath scent. Mama was on TV. Later, after bedtime stories and whispered goodnights, Maya found me on the hotel balcony. How bad was it? He knows, I said simply. He saw Kai in a photo and knew immediately. Maya was quiet for a moment. What happens now? Now? I looked out at the Portland skyline, lights twinkling with promise and possibility. Now we wait and see what kind of man he decides to be. But either way, we'll be fine. We've been fine without him. We'll keep being fine. More than fine, Maya corrected. We're extraordinary. And we were. Complicated, messy, imperfect, but extraordinary nonetheless. Daniel's email came 6 weeks later. 3 pages of carefully crafted legalese mixed with what I assumed were genuine attempts at emotion. He'd seen a therapist. He'd consulted a family lawyer. He wanted to explore co-parenting opportunities and establish a meaningful relationship with his children. I read it to my own lawyer, Sandra, while the triplets played in the studio's childcare area. Through the window, I could see Kai mediating a dispute between Luna and another child over a toy dinosaur, his serious little face so much like Daniel's it made my chest ache. He's being surprisingly reasonable, Sandra said, reviewing the email. No threats, no custody demands, just a request to meet them. Under supervision, I said, with conditions. We hammered out the terms over the next 2 weeks. Daniel would meet the children as Mommy's old friend. No overnight visits for the first year. Mandatory therapy sessions. Individual and eventually family. Regular drug and alcohol testing. Perhaps petty, but I needed every safeguard. All meetings would happen in public spaces or at the studio with Maya or Tasha present. And if he misses 3 scheduled visits, he's done, I added. My kids won't wonder every weekend if today's the day Daddy shows up. The first meeting was set for a Saturday afternoon at the Portland Children's Museum. I'd chosen it deliberately. Neutral ground, plenty of distractions, easy exits if needed. Remember, I told the triplets that morning, Mommy's friend Daniel is coming to play with us today. If you don't want to talk to him or play with him, that's okay. You're in charge. Is he nice? Nova asked, looking up from her drawing of what appeared to be a 3-headed dragon. I hope so, baby. We'll find out together. Daniel was already there when we arrived, standing awkwardly by the entrance in jeans and a button-down, the most casual I'd ever seen him. He looked nervous. Good. Hi, Harper. His eyes went immediately to the children, drinking them in like a man seeing water after days in the desert. Daniel, these are my children. Kai, Luna, Nova. This is Daniel. Kai stepped forward first, my brave boy, and offered his hand for a shake. Hello, do you like dinosaurs? Yes, Daniel said, clearly not expecting the formal greeting from a 3-year-old. I like dinosaurs very much. Then you can stay, Kai decided, which broke the ice enough for Luna to pipe up. I can sing my ABCs backwards. Want to hear? And just like that, they were off. I watched Daniel navigate the Children's Museum with 3 energetic toddlers, saw him fumble with Nova's quiet requests, struggle to keep up with Luna's stream of consciousness chatter, light up when Kai explained the difference between herbivores and carnivores with deadly seriousness. He's trying, Maya murmured beside me. Trying isn't enough, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Because he was trying. When Nova hung back from a busy exhibit, overwhelmed by the noise, he noticed. Sat with her at a quiet corner table with crayons until she was ready to rejoin. When Luna performed an impromptu concert for confused strangers, he applauded like she was on Broadway. When Kai corrected his pronunciation of Pachycephalosaurus, he repeated it until he got it right. The visit that should have lasted an hour stretched to 3. By the end, Nova was holding his hand as they walked to the gift shop, where he bought them each a small toy despite my protests. Thank you, he said as we loaded 3 tired children into car seats, for letting me meet them. They're incredible, Harper. They are, I agreed. And they deserve consistency, commitment, someone who shows up every time, not just when it's convenient. I know, I'm going to... Don't make promises, I interrupted. Just show up. Every Saturday, 2 p.m., we'll be here. He showed up. Every Saturday for 6 months, he showed up. Museum visits became park play dates, became Saturday lunches. The children started calling him Mr. Daniel, then Daniel. Then one day, Kai asked if he could call him Daddy Daniel. Is that okay, Mama? Kai asked, looking between us with those serious gray eyes. I wanted to say no. Wanted to protect them from the possibility of disappointment. Instead, I heard myself saying, if that's what feels right to you, sweetheart. The day Daniel saved Nova changed everything. We were at Laurelhurst Park, the kids playing on the jungle gym while Daniel and I maintained our careful distance on a bench. Nova, my careful, cautious girl, had climbed higher than usual, emboldened by her siblings' encouragement. I saw it happen in slow motion, her foot slipping, her small body tilting backward. But Daniel was already moving, catching her before she hit the ground, absorbing the impact himself as they tumbled onto the wood chips. I've got you, he said, checking her over for injuries. You're okay, little star. I've got you. Nova clung to him, sobbing into his shirt. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. Not the polished investor or the networking professional, but someone capable of putting another person's needs first. Thank you, I said that evening as he helped load sleeping children into the car. Always, he said, and for the first time I wondered if he might mean it. The winter concert at the community center was Nova's idea. She'd been taking art classes there since September, part of our effort to help her find her voice beyond her brother's exuberant shadows. When she came home with a flyer about their family showcase, she was uncharacteristically insistent. Everyone's whole family comes, she said, those gray eyes, so like Daniel's, fixed on mine. Can Daddy Daniel come too? 18 months. That's how long Daniel had been Daddy Daniel to them. 18 months of Saturday visits becoming Tuesday dinners becoming, why can't Daddy Daniel come to Kai's soccer game? He'd missed exactly one scheduled visit for a business emergency and had FaceTimed from the airport to apologize to each child individually. If you want him there, we can invite him, I said, smoothing her dark hair. She nodded solemnly, then added, and Aunt Maya and Tasha, and maybe Miss Vivian? My heart squeezed. In Nova's mind, this was her family. Not nuclear, not traditional, but hers. The night of the concert, our section was full. Maya and her new girlfriend, the kids called her Dr. Sam, Tasha with her daughter, Vivian, who'd become not just a business partner but a friend, and Daniel. He sat at the end of our row, still somewhat separate but undeniably present. When Nova's class took the stage for their performance, a combination art display and song, she scanned the audience until she found us. Her whole face lit up, and she waved with both hands, nearly dropping her artwork in the process. "That's my girl up there," Daniel said softly, and I didn't correct him. Because in all the ways that mattered, she was. After the concert, Nova presented her artwork. A family portrait that took my breath away. She'd drawn all of us, me in the center, the triplets surrounding me, Maya on one side, Tasha on the other. And there, not at the center, but clearly included, was Daniel. He wasn't separate or on the margins. He was simply there, part of the constellation she'd created. "It's beautiful, baby," I told her, blinking back tears. "It's us," she said simply. "All of us." Later, as we cleaned up paper plates and juice boxes in the community center kitchen, Daniel found me alone for the first time in months. "Harper," he started, then stopped, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I need to say something, not ask for anything, just say it." I nodded, hands busy with dishes, grateful for something to do. I was an ass. No, worse than that. I was cruel and selfish and threw away the best thing in my life because I thought I deserved something shinier. Some fantasy that didn't exist. He paused. "Sophia left me for the same reasons I used on you. Said I was emotionally unavailable, married to my image of success instead of reality. And she was right. Daniel, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for another chance at us. I know that ship has sailed. But I need you to know that these kids, this weird, beautiful family we've all built, it's taught me who I actually am, not who I thought I should be." I turned to face him then, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Not the polished Daniel who'd swept me off my feet, not the cruel stranger who'd shattered my world, but this version. Imperfect, trying, present. "You don't need to grovel," I said. "You show up. You love them. That's what matters now." "I do love them," he said, "and I'm grateful for whatever place you let me have in their lives." 6 months later, at the Ashes Studio expansion celebration, we were opening our 10th location, Harper gave a speech that would later go viral. "From ashes, we don't just rise," I said, looking out at the crowd of women who'd become family, at Maya, who'd been my rock, at Tasha, who'd helped build this dream, at Vivian, who'd shown me that even betrayal could become a bridge to something better, at my children, playing in the corner with Daniel, who'd earned his place in their lives one Saturday at a time. From ashes, we choose. We choose who stands with us. We choose what we build. We choose to create families that don't fit in neat boxes but overflow with love anyway. We don't recreate what was lost. We build something entirely new. Something that includes Friday night dinners with too many people around the table, Christmas mornings where the kids have 4 different stops for presents, and family portraits that would make traditional family photographers scratch their heads. The audience laughed, many wiping away tears. My children have a father who chose to show up when he could have walked away. They have an aunt who became a co-parent, a chosen auntie who teaches them strength, a community of women who show them that family isn't just about blood, it's about choice. Daily, conscious, sometimes difficult choice. I found Daniel's eyes in the crowd. He was holding Nova, tears streaming down his face. "So here's to the ashes." I raised my glass of sparkling cider. "Here's to the women who rise from them. Here's to the families we build from the pieces. Here's to choosing love in all its messy, imperfect, glorious forms. Here's to writing our own definitions." The room erupted in cheers. Nova wiggled out of Daniel's arms and ran to me, followed by her brothers. As I held my children, surrounded by the family we'd chosen and built, I thought about that night 4 years ago when I'd left a glittering gala with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. I couldn't have imagined this. Couldn't have dreamed that betrayal would lead to birth, that isolation would create community, that ashes would become the foundation for something far stronger than what had burned. But that's the thing about rising from ashes. You get to choose what shape you take. And we'd chosen love. Complicated, unconventional, imperfect love. And it was more than enough. It was everything.